Hi, and welcome to Images as Links by Phil Blakely. Links. Well, there are several types of links. First, you have the external link. And here's an example of an external link. It takes the user to youtube.com when they click on the underlined text youtube.com. Here's a link to another document on the same website. This would take the user to page2.html from the link page2. And finally, you have a link to a location within the same web page or document. And this would take the user to the predefined ID of content 3 when they click on content 3 with an underline. Notice that each one of these starts with the beginning of the opening tag of A, and then href equals, and within quotes, the resource you want to take the user to, in quotes, and then the text that you want the user to go to, that will be underlined for them, and then the closing tag. Each link has a path. A link's path tells the web server where to find the page or resource that you want the user to view. The default path is the same folder the current web page resides. So in this case, in the previous example, page2.html would have to reside in the same folder that the current web page that the user is viewing resides. An absolute path, on the other hand, tells the web server exactly where to look for a document. The document must exist on that web server, but can be anywhere the service account has access. Now, this is getting into the weeds a little bit about how a web server works, but web servers work within the context of a user account on that server, and that user account has to have access to the file and the folder that the file exists in. So you can point to anywhere on that server as long as the service account has the correct rights to access it. Here's an example of using an absolute path. Notice the regular link is replaced with the word file and a colon and 3 forward slashes, then the drive letter and a colon, and every single folder and subfolder along the way to get to the file you want the user to view. This isn't typically recommended, and the reason it's not is because it makes it very difficult to move that website to another server. That new server you move the website to would have to have the exact same drive letter, so it couldn't be E, for example, and the exact same folders and subfolders along the way to get to that file. Otherwise, it'd be a broken link. The alternative, then, is a relative path. A relative path is simply a path that is relative to the folder where the current page exists. Here's an example of a relative path. Note that this is a folder, PDF. It tells the server that to look for the file, pdfexplanation.pdf, in a subfolder. So this subfolder has to exist in the exact same location or folder as the current document, but then a subfolder called PDF, and the file is in there. Here's an example. Also, note here that the 2 dots and the forward slash, this tells the server that, hey, start from the current location of the document you're viewing and go up 1 level, and then go down to the PDF1, pdfexplanation.pdf file. Then you have links within the current page. So one of the more useful things you can do is link to another place within the current HTML web page. This is done by using predefined IDs. So here's a link to a predefined ID called content3. This displays as content3 and takes a user to a predefined location. Note that this hashtag is telling the server, or pound symbol, whatever you want to call it, is telling the server that this is a predefined ID that you're about ready to take and want to take the user to. You use the ID attribute to define these predefined places. And here's an example of using the ID attribute in the h3 tag to define the predefined ID of content3. Notice there's no hashtag here when you're defining it. One ID you don't have to predefine is the pound ID, or the hashtag itself ID. This means the top of the current page. The ID attribute can be used within any element, but it must follow these rules. Number 1, all IDs in a single document have to be unique. You can't use 2 content 2s or 2 content 3s. You can't use two my vacation pics. Then each ID must have at least 1 character. You can't have a blank one. And IDs can't contain any spaces. And then here's some examples. There's a previous example of using it within the h3 tag. Here's an example of using it within the div tag. Notice the name of the predefined ID is mydiv. And here's an example of using one within the paragraph tag, and the predefined ID is volume. Now images images are an element that by default appear inline and surrounded by text. So this means that you have to be a little careful where you place your image. If you have text around it, then the text will display, you'll have your nice big image, and then the text will continue after it. So you need to be careful about where you put it or use a style sheet. Your basic image your basic image looks like this: the image tag, and then a source and a file name. Notice that this uses the relative file name, so kitten.jpg would have to exist within the same folder as the current page does. And here's a simple page that uses that image tag. It looks like this. However, I like my kittens just a little bit bigger, and there we go. I just changed the height to 400 and let the width auto size so that the aspect ratio stayed the same. Then you have alternative text in an image. Use the alt equals to assign alternative text to an image. So here's an example with some alternative text. Notice the source is the same. I changed height to width. There's no real reason, just showing you it can be done differently. And the alternative text is tiny mewing kitten in a basket. Now you should always assign alternative text to an image. And the reason is alternative text is used when an image fails to display or when a screen reader is being used. And if you don't use alternative text, the web browser displays the image file name instead. So if the file fails to work and you didn't have this alternative text in here, it would show kitten.jpg, or the screen reader would read kitten.jpg. And that's not particularly descriptive. Your file names aren't always descriptive, and certainly not as descriptive as tiny mewing kitten in a basket. Then putting it all together. Images themselves can be used as links. All you have to do is replace the text in the link with the image file. So here's your link, and the underlying text is mewing kitten videos. It would take the user to youtube.com, and the results of a query of mewing plus kittens, or kitten, it would become this. Now I spread it out a bit to make it easier to read for you, but notice the exact same link up here, ending here, and I replaced mewing kitten videos with the image source and all the attributes that you want to add. And then of course close that tag. That web page looks exactly the same, cute little kitten, but when a user clicks on a kitten, it takes them to YouTube with the predefined mewing kitten search results. And I highly recommend this search and click through a few videos because kittens are cute. All right, since an image essentially replaces the text in a link, you have the exact same options when using an image as you do with a text link. All three of those types of links are available. Here's your external link, just like we showed. Cute mewing kittens, this is external to the website. Then you have, here's your predefined ID, why kittens mew, and it will take the user when they click on that kitten picture up to this. And this is a link that takes the user to another page within the same site. The relative path being PDF subfolder and then mewingkittens.pdf. Another reason why you might use this is you might have a next image or an image that is a navigation image that would take the user somewhere. And then here's your regular hashtag that just takes the user to the top of the page when they click on this. I'm not sure why you'd use this particular one, but you might have an image at the bottom of the page that says, take me back to the top. So some common mistakes you might make when using this feature. In images or links, using the wrong type of slash. Web pages use forward slashes, not backslashes. As old computer guys that have been around for a while, we like to use backslashes for everything, especially when looking at paths. But web servers don't use that. This particular thing would not work. The image would be broken. It would display the alternative text, but you wouldn't be able to get to the image. Instead, you got to use that forward slash. This would work as long as you had the subfolder called images and the image. Then, of course, there's stretching the image. When you assign both a height and a width to an image, you can end up skewing the aspect ratio and making the image appear stretched or squashed. To avoid this, you use just the height or the width, not both. So here's your one that can appear squashed. Notice I made this guy square, 200 by 200. That previous image of the kitten was a little bit wider than it was tall. This would have skewed the image and made it look unusual. So we don't recommend that typically for pictures. If you just set one of them, it will auto size the other and keep the aspect ratio exactly the same. Another common mistake is failing to use the full URL in your external link. I made this one myself when I was first learning how to do this. So you don't want to use www.google.com. That won't go anywhere. The link won't work. Instead, you got to put the full http:// in there. And you remember to do it exactly where you want the user to go. If you want them to go to an encrypted web page, you got to put the S in there. Of course, you got to make sure that there is an encrypted version of that web page. If you wanted to go to a subfolder or a file within that website, you would want to link directly to that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was slightly informative. Thank you very much for your time.